A warm welcome to you all to yet another exciting webinar to you by Blue Connect. My name is Bongile Mapalle. I am the administrator of this platform. Also to say a million thanks to you all for making time in your schedules to attend the webinar in the wake of what is facing our country today, together with the rest of the world today. As this is a webinar which depends entirely on connectivity, please expect some delays in transmission, so the voice might be ahead of the video and vice versa. Secondly, please be advised that the platform did not allow us to collect your HPCSA Council registration numbers. So shortly, you will be requested to submit them to us so that we can allocate points and send you your certificates. To ensure, to ensure attendance, we will be asking questions throughout the sessions to ensure that everybody is still paying attention. We request that everyone to respond to the question when it comes so that we can ensure you're still there. Otherwise, we will not be able to allocate the points to those who did not answer. For those of you who do not know what Blue Connect is about, let me summarize and say Blue Connect is an independent platform that aims to create a blue discussion space in healthcare in Africa, which essentially means a space that is full of wisdom, trust, intelligence, and the truth. It's a platform that aims to facilitate robust and reliable, intelligent, and thought-provoking debates and interactions amongst healthcare practitioners. It is not a representative body, but rather a platform open to anyone who wants to share, educate, and start a discussion or debate with healthcare practitioners at large across all various professions. We chose to use the mascot named Blue to remind people that this platform is not racial or associated with any organization other than Blue himself. Now, allow me to introduce Themba Dikgale. Themba Dikgale is a management consultant whose area of expertise revolve around enterprise development. Themba is an alumni of the University of Pretoria and University of South Africa in business management with financial specialization. Since 1997, Themba has worked in brand strategy and management of a Section 21 media entity, below the line marketing strategy and implementation, product planning and pricing, i.e. for market introduction strategy development to tactical responses to competitors, all the way to product run-out strategy development and implementation. But Themba really found his niche over the last 12 years, working as management consultant with entities across many industries, from automotive retail and manufacturing, medical services, green technology, and services sector in general. His specific competence lies in strategy development and implementation, operational and organizational efficiency, growth management, turnaround strategies, and people and leadership development. Ntate Dikgale, sebaka ke sa gago.
Thank you, Bongi. Thank you. I hope everybody's all comfortable. We are about to set out on what I hope is going to be thought-provoking presentation, one that will make you think and consider things differently in your business, and certainly one that will make you want to put some changes in place in order to improve and change your business for the better. I will be going through a set of slides which will cover a couple of topics which have been broken down into 7 sections. Firstly, going through fundamentals of financial management, and then talking to the impact of the economy on your business, the impact of the economy on your customers, the impact of COVID-19 on your business. And in the wake of all of that, how do you go about setting out a survival strategy in your operations so that your business can survive these elements? And over and above that, how is your leadership supposed to adapt to the situation at hand? And lastly, how to build a business that is looking to itself to continuously improve in order to be able to improve its pace, become a better business and a better legal entity. I certainly hope that I will keep you interested in this discussion for the next hour and a half. If you have any questions, please feel free to post them in the chats. I will also be asking you certain questions, and will challenge you to post the answers in the chats as well, so that we can have an engaging discussion back and forth. So if you are ready, I am ready too. Take a moment to consider the following. Can we talk the fundamentals of financial management, shall we? Most people consider financial management a topic best left to accountants, and that's okay. Most people consider financial management something that they don't have to deal with until they have to pay their taxes, and that too is okay. But you can never have a grip on your business and improve it if this is not something that you are considering on a daily basis in the operations of your business. Because it is the things that you do in your business daily that will show up in your financials and not vice versa. It is important to consider that when you are running your business, you do not just do what you do, give information to your accountant so that he does his magic and you have financials that look good. It is your actions on a daily basis that produce good financials. I hope to be able to demonstrate that for you today, and as we go through the next section. So, all businesses are made up of things. These are things that a business owns because of a past event. They are in your control, and when you use these things, they result in an inflow of economic benefits. So, in principle, these things are called assets. They could be property, furniture, cash, equipment, inventory, investment, debtors, computers, all these tools of the trade, the things that are in your business, that are in your asset register. These are the things that you're using to generate value in your business. Now, what is important to consider about these things is the following. When you use them, you are actually generating income. And I want you to think about this in a completely different way as you're going through the next question. Consider, if you may, the way you have 100,000 Rand worth of inventory, which is stock. This inventory, you have to place an order and pay for the stock for 100,000. And once you've paid for the stock, you wait for it while it is sent or is in transit to be brought from the supplier to your store. That might take a couple of days. You then take delivery of the stock. You take the stock, you put it on your shelf to sell, and it might take a few days or a few months to sell. And then once you've sold it, you take a couple of months or at least a month to collect your money. This is 100,000 Rand that started at a certain point where it was cash in your hand, became stock, set on your shelf, you collected it, and it's another 100,000 Rand in your hands. Now, if this process takes you 60 days, for an example, in a year with 360 days, it means you would be turning your stock 6 times. In a year with 360 days, it means you'll be turning your stock 6 times. So that one a lot of cash of 100,000, if you turn it 6 times, you will make income, a turnover of 600,000. This is why we call it turnover, because you are turning over your stock, you are turning over your assets. Consider, if you may, how many times do you turn your stock in your business in a year? If you have an answer to that and it is readily available in here, please post it in the chat room so that you can engage to that thought. One of the benefits of being in an environment such as this one is that you have the absolute opportunity to put up your numbers against anybody else so you can see whether your business is doing very well, badly, or if there's areas of improvement. So I will challenge you. Be brave enough to put the numbers up in the chat room so that you are able to see whether you're doing poorly or badly, poorly or very well. This is the benefit of being here. This is the benefit of working with people who are like-minded such as yourself, because when you are running your business on your own, you have no idea whether you're doing very well or very poorly. Being here allows you the opportunity to see whether you're doing well, because this 6 turns a year means a completely different story if you're able to turn your assets at, say, 8 times. So in other words, if you have inventory for 45 days and you turn your stock 8 times, then 100,000 Rand becomes 800,000 in turnover. So in principle, anybody who's turning his stock in a shorter period of time in a day, in a year, that person makes more money. I'm going to say this again. The person who's able to turn his assets more times in a year, that person makes more money in a year. All these questions related to marketing, location, and everything else are all designed to help you turn your assets more or faster and faster. So whoever gets the right combination of factors in order to achieve this quicker, that person is able to make more money. So I see a response of about 100 days in the chat room, which means 100 days means that this person turns his asset 3 or 3.5 times a year. I see another response of 10. I'm assuming they're turning the assets 10 times a year. So that implies that 100,000 would have been turned into 1 million. I'd like to challenge you to put down this number in the chat room so that we are able to engage on it better. Now, I would also like to challenge you to think broadly, even bigger than the stock. So in other words, consider your financial statements from last financial year. And remember what was the total asset number in your balance sheet. And also think about what was your turnover in your income statement last financial year. So take your turnover and divide it by the assets that were in your balance sheet and tell me how many times did you turn your assets in the last financial year. I see a number of 6, which is also very good, assuming that is total assets turned. And I'd also challenge you to consider your total assets in your business, not just your stock. The higher the number of turns, the more money you're making. So what this means is you need to make sure that you only keep the assets you need, only the assets you absolutely need in your business in order to make the maximum amount of money. So close your eyes and think about your business. Think about your practice. Think about all your assets, your computers, your furniture, your printers, everything. If there is a chair that is in your business and you haven't seen anybody sitting on it in a week, you really need that chair. If there's a printer that nobody else ever used in the last year, you really need that printer in your assets. When you keep your asset base as low as possible, you are able to run a more efficient business. The number 5 to 6 seems to be very prominent in the chat room. If your number is much lower than 5, then you have a good reason to be concerned. If your number is very high, then you could be very happy and running a very lean business, or perhaps you might not be consuming certain elements. But hopefully by the end of this section, this evening, you will be able to look at certain aspects of your business and know what to look at and think of changing. I'm trying to get you to ruminate this and think about it even more intently. What is the number that you should be chasing in turning your assets? Are there any questions? Do you have any questions? No? Okay. In the absence of questions, let's move on to the second section. Now, your business does not exist in isolation. It functions in the world that is in a certain location, which is in a certain country, in a certain continent, and part of a specific planet. Everything that happens in the world has a direct impact on your business. And in the basis of what we've all learned is that there are three main elements or factors of production in generating any production supply. First is labor, capital, property or land. And if you get the right mix of all of these, you actually have an economy which then produces products which are consumed by a group of people who have a great demand for them. All these three elements make it into the 5 highest expensive elements of your income statement. If you had to take all your expenses and rank them from highest to lowest, I promise you, these elements, labor, rent, your cost of capital, these are probably the most expensive components. Now, when you think of the economy, you've heard of inflation, which is the cost of money, which becomes more and more expensive over time. With the recent events in our economy, the president has released something like 10% of our gross domestic product into the economy at 500 billion rand. What he's done is that increased money supply, which means that over time, the amount of money that is circulating in the economy is much higher than what it used to be, 10% more. The cost of that money that you use, if you wanted to borrow that money and use it, comes through in the interest rate. We've just had an announcement today that the interest rate has been decreased by 0.5 basis points, the lowest that we've seen in 20 years, I think. And this is an effort to stimulate the economy so that we can have a gross domestic product which is decent enough to be growing over time. You will also know that the classic definition of a recession is when you have 2 consecutive quarters with a negative gross domestic product, which then means that we've been in a recession, and therefore it's incumbent on the government to try and stimulate this economy with or without COVID and try and get us to function in an optimal manner. Now, the challenge with this is when you see the people who are your customers coming in and out, it is you and your own productivity that improves the productivity of the economy. It's very easy, and many people think this way. They think, oh, if the economy is doing badly, my business is doing badly, or my business is doing badly because of the economy. But in actual fact, it's the other way around. It is because you are doing badly that the economy is doing badly. You need to apply the thinking cap constantly in order to find solutions for the problems that exist. In this economy and these times, you cannot be as complacent as to say your productivity is a function of what the economy gives you. You, in your business, are driving the economy. I hope that makes sense, and I hope that makes you consider yourself challenged in order to produce a better business that contributes more into the economy. These numbers that we are seeing now, lowest interest rates in 20 years, 500 billion released into the economy, and so on and so forth, are numbers that you are going to see the effects of over the next maybe 3 years. The question is, what are you going to be doing in your own business to drive productivity so that your business is able to survive over the next 3 to 5 years? Are there any questions? Okay. We're going to move on to the third section of the presentation. Now, as you see these numbers daily, you have to ask yourself, how does this affect my customer? This is the guy that has to buy the products that you are selling, and the person that has to pay for the services that you are offering. When interest rates are at 7.75, what does that mean for the guy that is coming into your business to buy your product? Which brings us to this section of the presentation. Now, let's consider my friend James. He has a gross salary of 20,000 rand. After taxes and UIF and pension and everything else, he's got about 16,000 rand in his hand. He applies for a bond at 25%, which means that the maximum he can get would be about 25% of his salary, between 25 and 33% of his gross salary, which comes to 5,000 rand. At a prime interest rate of 10%, it means his bond is probably about 500,000. We can discuss what he can get for 500,000, where does James live, and so on and so forth. But let's just work with 500,000 in our minds. When there is a 0.5% change in the interest rates, this is what his disposable income looks like. It gets worse and worse and worse and worse, from a point where he could have been sitting with a net income of about 11,200 in his hand after paying for his bond. He now has to make it survive and make it work with 9,400 rand if his interest rates go up to 15%. Some people might say that's implausible. Well, let's see what the world looks like after we survive the coronavirus. So with these challenges in his mind, James has other priorities on his list. And he also has to consider what he's going to spend his money on. Food, housing, apparel, transportation, medical aid, recreation, education. At what point are his classes a priority enough for him to spend? And when he spends money on that, what are these things that is reduce expenditure on? These are the questions that James has to deal with on a daily basis. And you know this guy. He comes through to your practice all the time. He's the guy that's fighting for a discount. It's not because he's being funny or doesn't want you to earn a living. He too has challenges that he's facing because of the same economy that we are all concerned about. James isn't struggling or isn't being difficult because he doesn't want to pay. He's struggling just like all of us. And when you are doing your budget, how many of you feel like this guy? In fact, let me challenge you with the next question. In running your business on a daily basis, do you have an idea of how much it costs you? Now, let's say, I can almost think that many of you are sitting there saying, yeah, of course I know how much it costs me, but can I ask you in the chat room to type? What does your business cost you to run per day? Put down a number. When you put your key in the keyhole and turn it to open your practice on a daily basis, how much does it cost you? So take your total expenses, employment, everything else, variable, everything, total expenses, and divide that by the number of working days per month. What does it come to? Again, I'm going to challenge you to put that down in the chat room. Isn't it a scary thought that we don't know? But can we do that now? I see a number of about plus minus 6,000 Rand a day. Does anybody have a number that's different? Think about what you pay, your total costs for the month, and divide that by the number of months. Nothing difficult. Just take the number, the total expenses that you pay per month, and divide it by the number of days in a month. Can I ask you to think about this in this way then? If you take your total income per month, you know how much you earn a month, and divide that by the number of days in a month. How much are you earning per day? Do you know? If you take the total earnings, your total revenue, the income that you make per day, per month, and divide it by the number of days in a month, do you know how much you are making per day? I'm seeing numbers that range between 5 and I'm seeing a number of 1,066, 1,500. I'm sorry. So I'm asking the question, do you know how much it costs you to run your business per day and how much your business earns per day? So, you see, if you know these two numbers and you know how much you earn per day and you know how much it will cost you to run the business, then you know how many days in a month you have before you start making money. And this brings us to this concept of break-even cost. So in other words, let me give you an example. Let's say it costs you 10,000 Rand in total expenses to run your business per month. And if you take how much you earn per day and divide it into 10,000 Rand, then it means that you will run your business daily for 10 days, and only on day 11 you start making money. Do you know how many days that is in your business? Because of course, if you know how many days it is, then you know how hard or how little you need to be working daily to get to the target. I know the break-even concept is a lot more complex than that, but I'm saying if you track it on days, on daily, you can get to a number of days that you need to sell in order to pay off all your expenses before you start being profitable. I've seen somebody ask, saying that it takes them 22 days, for an example, and that's what I see in the chat room. I've seen somebody saying, it takes me 35 days to pay off my expenses based on what I make a year. And that tells you that this person obviously tracking at a loss. And when you do know that you're tracking at a loss, perhaps the measures that you need to be putting in place are going back to fix some expenses, track it down, see where you're overspending in order to reduce your operations. These are questions that you should be able to answer at a drop of the hat if you're going to get a handle on your financial management in your business. These are numbers that you should not be waiting for your accountant to tell you. I see a number of about 10 to 15 days. I see another number of 22 days. I ask again, how many days does it take in your business in order for you to cover the costs that you need to pay off in the business? And this speaks to a couple of the issues that are defined in your planning. So in other words, if you have an annual plan that you break down to a monthly a budget, to say monthly, this is what I need to get to. And then when you operate on a monthly basis, compare what you planned to achieve, what you actually achieved. What you will have is what we know as the variance analysis. This is the report that tells you the gap between what you budgeted to achieve versus what you actually achieve. If you have this in place, then you know what in your business you need to fix in terms of your brand, your operations, your customer experience, your financial management. And the only way you can get that right is if you establish a good enough process of continuous improvement so that you can make sure that your budget and your actual are on par. I see the number between 15 and 22 days is the average. If your number is higher than that, then I believe that you need to go back to a variance analysis and determine what it is that you're doing incorrectly in terms of what you budgeted versus your cost, so you can bring your number in line with something like 20 days, because that should be the target that you're tracking on your operations. Now, we've covered how your customers are affected. We've covered how the economy affects your business. We've covered how the fundamental financial management aspects of your business translate in the operations. As you can see, running a practice is not that easy, and these concepts, as easy as they are and as difficult as they are the Achilles heel to the manner in which you are running your business in a productive manner. But with all these difficulties in play, with all these challenges that we know, in comes an anomaly that none of us has ever dealt with before. I'm going to ask the questions. Are there any questions from the sections that we've dealt with so far?
Untitled Dikgale?
Yes.
I see just a comment maybe you can respond to. Someone is saying depends. I think the question should be, how many clients do you need in a month for you to start making money?
Yeah.
But
okay. So It's like the cat, what came first, the chicken or the egg? So let's deal with that concept for a second. So in knowing how many days you need to track to, you perhaps need to then determine in order to achieve a certain revenue daily, how many clients will I need to get to, and that affects the type of marketing that you do. It types the types of customers that you're looking for, the types of customers who spend a certain amount of money. The number of clients is a question that is precipitant to how many days are you tracking to. Because if in your market you have a customer base that spends, I don't know, 2,500 rand every time they come and see you, the number of clients that you see will be completely different to somebody else who's running a practice where the clients are spending 6,000 or 7,000 rand a month when every time they see you. But you cannot target yourself as to how many clients you need to get to if you are unaware of the spread of your expenses per month and what turnover you need to get to in order to get to a break-even point. Because at first you need to know what are the pillars that you're not trying to get to. The costs are X, the daily revenue is Y, and in order to achieve this daily revenue, then you ask yourself how many customers you need. I hope that answers the question.
Okay, the next question I see here, it says, what is the average for other industries?
Okay. You see, the answer is dependent on the industry itself. Okay, I'll give you an example. In our industry, which is management consulting, our overheads are limited to very small offers. We spend most of our time at the client, so we don't spend as much for electricity, water, and stuff like that, because we are never in the office, we are at the client. Our scales will be looking completely different to somebody who runs a business where they sit in an office and the clients come to see them in this building that might cost the rent of 500,000, 600,000, 700,000 in a month. So there is no average across industries, because then what you're doing is you're not comparing apples and apples. Any number that you get would be specific to an industry. I have seen, for example, in automotive retail, businesses that are costing 100 million rand, which are turning over just under 1 billion rand a year, and they literally break even on day 25 of every month. I've seen businesses where there is absolutely no overheads in the business, no capital investments, like in consulting, for example, where they break even on day 8 of the month. So the answer is very difficult to answer as an average across industries. This is a question that is very important that you look at in your own industry, because then you're comparing apples and apples. I hope that answers the question. Now,
Untitled Dikgale?
yes.
There's another question that says, can a business survive if only covers to pay the expenses made every month?
I mean, of course it will survive, because all you're doing is you're working very hard for very little reward. The correct objective that any business should have is to make a profit. So if all your hard work every single month is to cover the expenses, and that's all you're doing, then you'll survive. The business will still open doors next month, but you are not achieving the objective of making a profit. The objective is to be able to cover the expenses and still make a profit. And the question is, at what level should you be operating in order to make that profit? Okay. As we move on to the next section, now The year 2020 might be remembered by many as the year where a lot of things were supposed to happen, but they might never happen at all. I know there might be Liverpool fans here who were hoping to see that the Kop would win the league this season, and that's not going to happen. We were supposed to see the Euro 2020, and this is the year that that's not going to happen. The year 2020 might be remembered as a year where the Olympic Games never happened. When Chet Leclerc was supposed to create records that are going to be breaking whatever Michael Phelps achieved, but we're not going to see that. This is the year where all the things that we were hoping to see are not going to happen because of COVID-19. Now this speaks to an unprecedented effect on the world, where the world basically shut down. And that's what we're witnessing now. If we survive all of this, and we're going to be telling our grandkids that there was a time where people used to blow on a cake and we gathered around and ate the cake. And they're going to be thinking, but that's impossible. Well, we're living through a time where all of that is going to be changing. We're going to be telling our grandkids that we used to grab each other's hands to greet. All of that is changing. And this impact is not just on the way we live, but it's also an impact that affects businesses. In South Africa, there's over 5 million micro small businesses. Most are located in the informal sector. And the National Development Plan, which is the economic policy document that the government of South Africa is driving on, says that by 2030, 9 out of 10 new jobs will be generated in micro and small and medium businesses. And these businesses are important. And in your world, you might say, okay, what is a small business and what is an informal business? The distinction is based on the following. Most informal small businesses are likely not registered. They don't normally comply with a lot of regulations. Most of the people who work in them are informally employed, and the asset base is normally small. Where small businesses, they employ about 50 people. They have regulated methods that are managing these businesses, and they turn over between 2 and 25 million rand, depending on industry, and the assets are between 2 and 4.5 million rand, depending on industry. So an optometry practice might just belong to these a classification of a small business. And these are the businesses that will be most affected by this crisis because they just do not have the resources to cover the overheads during these lockdowns. Now, are lockdowns necessary? Well, if you play around with the numbers, and I think when I did this, we were still tracking with an infection rate of 1,875. And if you think about these numbers and what they look like, they say 2.5 people. So one person who is infected with COVID-19 can infect about 2.5 people a day. So if you take that and multiply it by 1,875 to the power 31 in a month, exponential growth, then what you end up with is 19 million infections in the space of a month. And 19 million infections, according to the Minister of Health, Dr. Mkhize, he said that 20% of the people who are infected would end up in hospital, which means that if we ended up with 90 million infections, then 3.8 million people might end up in hospitals. And he also said about 1 to 3% of them will die, so that's 627,000 deaths. Clearly, this is a number that you cannot contend with. Is a lockdown necessary? Well, if it curbs an infection of 90 million people in a space of a month, then perhaps it is. And these are measures that have been taken by many economies around the world, and some look like they have been working, and some it remains to be seen. We do know that in markets where the government was very relaxed in their response to the pandemic, they've suffered greatly. And in markets where people have been clamping down, they seem to be on the mend a lot quicker than what we have noticed in other markets suffering. So, where it is detrimental to small businesses, lockdowns are certainly something that we perhaps need to go through. Difficult as it might be, it's probably very necessary. How long it is, that remains to be debated. The debate is raving on this question, but what we do know is, in all of this, as tumultuous as it might be, we still need to respond to these situations as businesses. Now, there was a research conducted by Papama Sedi, which is a social development initiative in the Western Cape. They were established by students inside the University of Cape Town in 2014 to help small businesses in Khayelitsha and Philippi. And they conducted a research exercise in which they spoke to about 233 entrepreneurs from 6 provinces across 17 industries. 77% of these people employed female employees. 6 people on average in these businesses these businesses employed 6 people on average, and 85% of these people did not have any access to any cars. So the small business in which they were working is the only income that they had. And in that research, they found out that the small and medium-sized owners said that 95% of them said they cannot afford to pay employees in this period of lockdown. 50% of them said they didn't think they could survive. 93% of them said they do not actually have any other source of income other than the business itself. So, as we look at what COVID means, is that we are looking at a world that has changed. And in fact, not only do we have to survive it and go through the lockdowns, but we also have to come up in a new world that is going to be functioning in a completely different way. For an example, in our company, when the lockdown, the Monday before the lockdown, the announcement was made that, okay, we're going to have 50% of us working at home and 50% of us working in the office, and we're going to rotate like so throughout the lockdown in order to increase the social distancing. 4 days later, the president announced a lockdown for the first 21 days, and within 4 days, we became 100% virtual business, all of us working from home. So I can assure you that now all of a sudden, our board is probably sitting there thinking to themselves, do we actually need this building if our people can be productive at home? Can we save rent? When these people are going to the bathroom, can you save on water because of the flushing that they might be doing? Or electricity on these air cons that they might need? Do we need the cleaners? Do we need the canteen? I can assure you that as we sit right now, the board at Bidvest and Group 5 is already working out on a plan that will help their businesses survive Corona, and that will survive the world as it will be after Corona. And these are the questions that you should be asking yourself today, as to how will you steer your practice to survive after Corona? How does your practice survive when the customer is petrified of you touching his face? How will the COVID-19 coronavirus affect the optometry profession in totality? If these are not questions that you're asking yourself, I can assure you that your survival will be limited. Are there any questions? In the absence of questions, let's move on to the next section. So now, how do you make your business survive in these difficult times? You see, the only way to make your business survive is to consider four pillars, the four concepts which speak to your use of the resources available to you. You need to use what you have available to you, and that speaks to utilization. And you need to make more with less, and that speaks to efficiency. And what you set out to do, you need to achieve, and that speaks to effectivity or effectiveness. And you need to generate value, and that speaks to productivity. So, if your mindset is not geared to these four elements, I can assure you that the effects of the coronavirus are going to be far longer lasting in your world than they may be for the rest of us. Now, how do you achieve these things over time? Well, the answer is you need three pillars. Okay? What are these three pillars? First, it's your people. What does your organization structure look like? Do you have the right number of people of the right age? Do they cost you enough money? Or well, are you paying the right amount of money? Or are these people of the right age? Are they correctly skilled? And so on and so forth. The second pillar is technology. What technology can you use to help you become more up-to-date, more cost-effective, more productive? Do you have enough of these tools to produce the type of productive levels that you need? Can you be effective with what you have today, or do you need to improve what you have? The third pillar, I call it the PPC, which is policy, processes, and controls. This is a point where the people and technology intersect in order to give you an output, in order to make your business productive, effective, and efficient. You use policies to empower your people so that people are empowered to make the same decisions that you would have made if you were there. So if we say our discount policy is 5%, well, nobody has to wait for you to come and tell them what is the discount policy. Discount policy is 5%, and that's what it is. You use processes to make sure that everything is used as effectively and efficiently as possible. Nobody knows what, when, and how to do things. And you use controls in order to manage your outcomes so that you can see the red flags early enough before things go wrong, so that you can then step in and make corrective actions before it's too late. Now, if these pillars are in place, then your business has the ability to function in a way that allows you to survive over time. What I'm going to do is play you this video so that you can see what I mean.
Are you waiting?
It looks like it's loading. Yes. So I'm not. Can they see it?
No, not yet. Which video is it? Okay.
Okay.
But Holland comes in for a pit stop. Time to refuel and change tires. Lou Moore himself changes the tires. Only 4 crew members, including the driver, are allowed to work on the car. It's a tense time. Holland stays in his seat, anxious to get away. Let's watch. Tires are changed at last. A crewman polishes the windshield as Holland moves away just 67 seconds after he stopped.
Now, I think you can clearly see what happens in a place where you have enough people with enough equipment and enough of a process where everybody knows what, when, and how to do what they need to do. The effectiveness of this process and business becomes that much quicker. I couldn't think of a video that makes this point more clearly. Now, in your business, I've tried to schematically represent the process that might be happening in your business on a daily basis. So, patient phones, they book an appointment. Customers come in, they may be met on arrival. There must be a meet and greet process that's applicable there. Then there's a consultation process that happens. There's a diagnosis that happens, that the stock is ordered and the lenses are created, fitted on the frame that's selected. Customer comes and collects the product. Then you speak to them about whether or not they're happy and satisfied with the lens and whether or not it has fixed the problem that they've experienced. Then there's the invoicing process, collections, and then reporting, which is the financial management side of it. Who of you have a clearly documented process in place in your business? So in other words, if I had to start working at your practice tomorrow, how many of you can hand me a documented process so that I know what I need to do, how I need to do it, when I need to do it? Who of you can safely say they have all the equipment that they need in order to do the job that's required? These are the pillars that we spoke about and how they interact in pulling off the survival of this business in these difficult times. Now, we will speak about the concept of leadership. I want to get to it in the next few slides, if you give me the chance to demonstrate something to you just now. So, let's deal with the concept of leadership first, and then as we schematically set up the next section of the discussion. You, as the owner of this practice, as the owner of this business, have a duty to lead this process. Now, there are 3 ways to lead or influence people, because leadership is influence. to get people to do what you want them to do when you want them to do at the level of quality that you need them to do it at, right? And there are three ways to do that. You either use pain. So in other words, you say to someone, do as I say or else. So if you put a gun to somebody's head and say to them, do as I say or else, then that person will be influenced by you because they are scared of pain. You might say, do as I say because I'm the boss, or because I'm the manager, or because I'm the leader. Or you could use your competence. Now, when I talk competence, here's an example. If we all had to find ourselves stranded in a plane crash in Bolivia, and the only person that can read a map is a 10-year-old boy, then guess what? The 10-year-old has the power because he will give direction to what needs to happen. That person will lead us in this process of trying to survive. So when you have competence in place or authority or pain, you can influence and lead people in some way. What is important to realize is good leaders can use one of these three. Brilliant leaders know how to use one of these and know how to use it at what time. You see, when you've demonstrated your competence to your people, then in that situation where there is a crisis and the building is burning and you say we run this way, guess what? Most of the time is they'll do what you say and say, well, he's proved that he knows what he's talking about, so we'll try and understand what he's talking about at a later stage, but right now let's just do what he says. And that's influence. Now, to produce an organization that is effective, that is productive, that is efficiently using its resources, it will need leadership. But what are the fundamentals that need to be placed in order to produce this type of leadership that is required? And that brings us to our next section. Are there any questions?
Yes, we've got two questions.
Yes.
The first question is from Bilal. It says, prices across the board have gone up on average 30% with respect to lab costs and frames. How do we go about counterbalancing such an increase in cost in such a difficult economic environment?
Okay. There are three things that you do in any business in order to help mitigate a change in cost structure. One, you either find areas in the business where you can reduce costs or use things more cleverly. So where the costs that you cannot control are running out of your hands, you look for the costs that you can control. Things that are variable, things like your stationery, things that speak to efficient use of electricity, water, and stuff like that. Areas that you can control, that's the area that you zone into and try and fix that by way of process. The second thing that you can do is either increase or decrease your pricing to an elastic level that lets you to get you the right volume. So this speaks to, can I increase my income? And if I do, how much will that affect the number of people that walk through the door? Or can I reduce it? Will it increase the number of people that come through the door? The third element is volume. So if your costs are at the lowest that they can be, and the pricing is at the most optimal that it can be, then the question is, are you getting the right number of people walking through the door? So you have to find the right balance between all three in order to achieve some kind of a counterbalance, or as the question states, in order to get some kind of a means to get to a productive state. So you are not going to be able to determine what areas of your business are costing you more than they should if you don't have a handle on your processes. you are not going to be able to see if you are being optimal in the manner in which you are marketing to your customers, if you don't have a control method to follow up on seeing where your customers are coming from, how do they learn about you, and why are they choosing you over somebody else. If you have no understanding of that, you can't get to a point where you balancing all these things back to back. So the challenge is, do you have the 3 pillars in place, and are you getting out of these pillars the information that you need in order to counter steer against adverse situations? Okay.
Okay. Our second question is from Samantha, and it reads, how will a practice survive that previously thrived on walk-in patients?
Okay. So, and this is a section that we'll be dealing with in continuous improvement, section 7, if you bear with me. But what is important there is, are you correctly positioned for the market that you're servicing? And if the positioning that you've chosen, in other words, you survived on walk-in and walk-in isn't working, is that positioning serving you going forward? And if it's not serving you, how do you change it? How do you reposition yourself in order to attract a different type of customer? Do you advertise in different places? Do you communicate to a client base that's different to you? How do you attract them to your area? Do you relocate to a more lucrative location for the type of customer that you're looking for, and so on and so forth? But we'll talk about that in more detail in section 7. If you let me move on, shall we? Okay.
Yes, we can.
Okay, now we spoke about leadership as a basis to steer the business in order to pull the 3 pillars together. Now I want us to look at the video that I played. I'm not going to go through this example. Let's use the video that I played just now to say the behavior in the organization is what allows you to lead people. So if you have values in place that guide the way the people behave, then the types of processes and procedures and controls and systems that you need are completely different to a business that doesn't have guiding values that are in place. Now I'm going to show you the video again. Let me do this. I'm going to show you the video again. That we've just watched now, the Formula One video. Okay.
But Holland comes in for a pit stop. Time
But
to
I need you
refuel
to
and
see.
change tires. Lou Moore himself changes the tires. Only 4 crew members, including the driver, are allowed to work on the car. It's a tense time. Holland stays in his seat, anxious to get away. Let's watch.
Now, look at the man who's changing the tires. The driver is sitting in his chair, and the only reason he's comfortable to do that is because the man changing his tires is committed to making sure that the tires are fitted on properly. If the driver did not believe that the behavior informing the man who's changing the tires is one of he makes sure the tires are fitted on properly, knowing that if he doesn't and the driver turns a corner, he will die. You look at the man standing at the front of the car that's going to park. He's only standing there because he believes the driver's going to stop. This is not the equipment. This is not the number of people who are doing the job. It is the fundamental values of trust, of mutual it is not the processes. The processes are in place. You have enough people in play who are doing the job, but they still need to trust each other. They need to believe in each other, and everybody needs to hope and know that I know that the guy who's working with me has my best interest at heart. It is the values that glue the organization together. And without these, your leadership cannot achieve its objective, even if you go through a process of writing down processes, even if you go through a process of putting the right systems and tools in place. If people are not working and guided by a certain level of value system, you will struggle to achieve processes that work. Now, in my organization, we use something called JUICE. JUICE is an acronym for just join us in celebrating excellence. And what we do is we are guided by a simple value of colleagues catching each other doing the right thing, rather than colleagues catching each other doing the wrong thing. So if I see somebody doing something right, we have a little bell in the office that we ring. We ring the bell, we stand on a little box, and we tell everybody what my colleague has done. And what that does is that it is advancing a value system of not only being good to each other as colleagues, but catching each other doing well. And catching each other doing well means fostering a process of continuous improvement. Now, this is just an example of how values drive the processes that you have in your organization, that values drive your leadership. Because believe me, it is that much easier to make decisions when values are in place. Okay. Now, why are values important, and why do values make your business easier to run? Well, I'll tell you this. People only care why you believe in what you believe. What and how you do what you do is just proof of what you believe. I'm going to say that again. People care why would you do what you do and believe what you believe. But what you do and how you do it, that is proof of what you believe. I'll give you a classic example, right? If you see a soldier who serves this country, you know why he's doing it. You see him in the uniform, you know why he's doing it. He says he loves his country. He's serving his country. That's cool. Him going to war, him making sure that he doesn't let the enemy get to his the people in the platoon. It's just what and how he does his job, and it just proves what he believes. Compare that with a CEO who says we need to retrench people because this is the only way we can save our business, and then goes into the board meeting and declares a bonus which is 20 times the value of the people that he's retrenched. See, why he needs to retrench people in order to save the business is what people care about. But what he did and how he did it was proof that he didn't believe in what he was saying. So the leadership that you show in your business on a daily basis is all about being proactive in demonstrating the values that you speak to. Because people care why you believe what you believe. But what and how you do what you do is only proof of what you believe. I'm going to show you something else if you let me. Now, I speak of the HAIL system of leadership. HAIL system speaks to honesty. You need to be honest. The things that you say should be the things that you do. You need to be authentic. The values that you speak to have to come from a place of truth, because if they don't, people will see that very quickly. You need to function with integrity. And you need to function with love. Love for the job, love for the patient, love for the co-worker, love for the business. if you stand on these four steps, your leadership will be that much easier because it will be based on specific values which are authentic and that are demonstrable on a daily basis. Now, we've spoken about leadership. We've spoken about how you are using your assets in a productive, effective, and efficient way. This can only be achieved through the three pillars of people, systems, policies, processes, policies, and controls. And all of that is established on a foundation, a strong foundation of values. If you have this in place, this brings us to our last section, which is continuous improvement. Are there any questions?
There was just one question. I think it's more of a comment. Is there a government subsidy for optometrists, like they are getting ready for the Taxi Association?
As far as I understand, there are, of the grants that are available, there are various methods that you can use as a small business. I'm not convinced that there is one that is specifically defined for people who are optometrists. I stand to be corrected. However, things like the UIF salaries, grants, things like payment holidays on long-term loans and stuff like that are in place. It's just a question of what you can or cannot use. The challenge with these things, and I've found that from a management consulting perspective, is if you aren't out there checking what is applicable to you, there isn't anybody that's going to come and collect you to make you apply and put yourself in place to get this assistance. The challenge with this is, of the grants that are available through the enterprise propellers and so on and so forth, it's still incumbent on you as a small business owner to go out and find out what is applicable to you and what is available for you to use, because nothing is going to be specifically designed for your industry, but it will be there available for you to use in your business at different levels. I hope that makes sense. So I'm not convinced that there is a system or there is a specific assistance program that is specified for an industry, but there might be a payment holiday scheme that is available. There might be a UIF grant system that helps you pay salaries in this time and so on and so forth. But this is why it's important to be up to date with your processes and policies and so on, because if you're not up to date and you don't have the tax clearance certificate and you don't have, some of these things will pass by you because you just can't access them because you're just not ready. So it is important that when you're running your business, you run it in such a way that when these things come up, you are able to readily access them because you are fighting fit to access them. Okay. I see in that there's a question about juice. Okay. So the acronym JUICE stands for Join Us in Celebrating Excellence. Join us in celebrating excellence. Okay. So as you can see, we're running out of time, but I'm going to try and get to this section a lot quicker. So the continuous improvement section, let's do this. Speaks to when you're running your practice, how is your customer's experience coming into your business on a daily basis? So consistency is what allows people to be happy to come back to your business, because when you serve people at a very high standard on day one, when they come back, they kind of expect that what you did last time is the way is what they're going to experience in the future. And so when there is inconsistency, then your customers will be unhappy. So this is why it's important to be clear about your processes, your policies, and controls to be clear that your people are working in a certain way, because you will not remember what you did for which customer yesterday. But if you treat all the customers the same, then there is a consistency to the level at which you are delivering your service. And so the three pillars come into play when you are defining your methodology and making sure that customers experience your business in the same way every time they come through. Now, it's important to converse with your customers. And how do you go about doing that? Well, let's talk about this principle. Communicating with your customer is important because when a customer is unhappy, he will go and speak to 9 to 10 people about it and spread out the word. But when he's not happy, when he's very happy with the business, he might not even say anything to anybody. Conversations with your customer is the most effective way to improve your business, because your customers will tell you what part of your process is not working. And how you should do it is to use something as simple as a customer satisfaction survey. Because a customer satisfaction survey is a most effective way to elicit the right information from your customers about what, when, and how to improve your business. How would you use it? Well, some people just have a questionnaire that asks the question, are you happy about what we do, and so on and so forth. But if you go back to the process that we spoke about earlier and make sure that the questions in your customer satisfaction survey are pointing to each of these steps in your process, then the answers will give you a clear idea of which part of your process is not working. So how do you do that? You set a target per questionnaire. You ask the question that relates to the process linked to the customer's experience. You use the results of the guide of the survey to improve your processes, because they will tell you which part of your process is not working. And once you have that information, then you look at your people and you say, okay, who's responsible for this process? Who's accountable for it? Who's a contributor and who's involved? And based on the feedback that we're getting from the customers, what are the customers saying about the way the people are doing their work? What systems are we using? What tools are we using? Are they at the right quality? The feedback that they give you will tell you what about that step in the process is not working. If the system is not working, if the tools are not working, the answers in the survey will point to that directly. And the last, when did you first hear about this and realize that the process is not working? Because as soon as you hear that, and the answers are pointing to a specific process that's not working, then you can go back and fix it and get your process to be improved in order to make sure that the customer's experience is at the highest level at all times. When you use the customer satisfaction survey as a direct tool to continuously improve your business, then you are efficient, then you will be effective, and you will be utilizing all your resources to be productive. This is a process that goes on over and over and over again. You need to have a very high target. You can't be sitting with 50% and then expect that your process will improve. You have to work with a very high target in order to make sure that you keep yourself at a very high standard. The statements that people give you are important because they inform the way you run your business. I cannot stress enough why it is important to converse with your customers, because if you don't, then the outcomes become that much more difficult to control. As I finish off, perhaps I could share with you this video.
มีเงินเลยมีแต่โยเกิร์ตยังไงอ่ะกินรองท้องไปก่อนดีไหมพี่ดีเหมือนกันมีปัญหาเรื่องสายตาปรึกษาผู้เชี่ยวชาญจริงๆดีกว่าที่แว่นท็อปเจริญ
Okay, that is it from my side. I don't know if there are any questions from the last section.
Yes, there are. I think I've seen 2 questions.
Yes.
The first one is, what if your patients are not happy with the price of a product, but you are happy with your price?
Say again. If you are, say again.
What if your patients are not happy with the price of a product, but you are happy with the price?
Then you're probably not targeting the right customer for the type of, you're not targeting the right customer. So if the patient, if you are believing that the product that you are selling is at the right value to the customer that you're looking for, and the customer is not happy, then perhaps you're not speaking to the right customer. I mean, if you take Louis Vuitton as a brand, when you walk in or you're looking for a Hugo Boss suit, and you walk in and you say this Hugo Boss suit at 15,000 Rand is too expensive, they're not heartbroken by you not liking the suit or not liking the price of the suit. They know that they have a specific customer that they're looking for, and perhaps it speaks to needing to refine your marketing communication strategy to target the right type of customer that is going to be happy with the price that you offer.
All right, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
The next one says, do you recommend sending this by email or SMS?
I recommend using the fastest way for you to collate the information back into some sort of report. And this, it's also sound like tongue-in-cheek because sometimes you also have to consider the type of customer that you have, what type of medium is easiest for them. If you are dealing with a customer based at 55 years and over, they might not have email addresses, and therefore if you send it by email, it might not work. So you first have to consider the customer, but also try and find the easiest method for you to produce some kind of a report that's going to get you back to a place where you use the data to improve your business. It wouldn't help to have hordes and hordes of documents that are very difficult for you to collate into some kind of a report once you've collected the information. Try and find the easiest way for your customers to fill in, and also the easiest way for you to collate the information into some kind of a report.
Okay, I think the next one, which probably is the last one, do you have an example of a customer survey that you can share?
Like I said, not really, because it speaks to your process. So unless once you have a clear process that's documented in your business, then the survey questions write themselves. So I do not expect that you would have one survey that can work for 10 different practices. As soon as you have that, then I don't think you are speaking to your own processes. And this is why I say it starts at the first pillar of documenting your process and know what your process looks like, because then you will know what questions to ask about which process.
Okay, I'm trying to see if there's any other question. There's one here that says, moving the practice to a new location is not an easy move. Is there a way to assess the market change in a particular area to make adjustments post-COVID-19?
I'm not sure if I understand the question. So I'm still convinced that if your surveying methodology is is structured enough, you should be able to elicit a decent amount of information that your customers are telling you, and that you can therefore attribute to the area that you're functioning in. But if there is another way, I think doing a whole research exercise might, produce a cost and benefit equation that is not productive for you. But I'm still convinced that a conversing methodology that allows you to speak to your customers will allow you to elicit the right type of information at the basic level of what the customer is saying to you about your business. Where there is a question about the assessment of the entire area, I would suggest that you look for sources that you can buy rather than to endeavor into a research exercise on your own.
Okay, I think that was it in terms of questions. Maybe before we finish, just a few comments and notices on our side is to firstly thank you so much, Themba Dikgale, for these informative sessions. I think the colleagues will agree with me that it was both very challenging and informative. I've seen that some colleagues were actually doing the calculations and presenting the numbers, and that is very great. We also note with great appreciation the gesture by Helen Marie de Villiers, who said that she's willing to share the practice procedures and policy booklet. I think she has posted it in the chat group. We just wanted to say that we note that with great appreciation, Helen Marie, because this is what this platform is about, the sharing of information. A reminder that we rely on your contribution to cover the expenses of the running of the sessions, so please do help us where you can. Lastly, last week we were quiet because we wanted to address the backlog with your CPD certificate. If you have not received your CPD certificate by now, please note that we probably do not have your HPCSA registration number. So please do send. We have sent an email to those who did not send their numbers. If you have received that email, please respond so that we can give you your certificate. But the rest of you should be having your certificates. If you don't, just please drop an email to cpd@blueconnect.co.za, then that certificate will be sent to you. But I'm happy to say that we have covered the backlog and we are now back on par. Only those who did not send us their numbers will not be having the certificate. We were also busy last week crafting new and exciting topics, and we have noted your input, which we welcome very well, and we are working behind the scenes to bring those topics to you. The exciting news is that next week, starting next week basically, for the next 6 weeks, every Thursday, we will be having an interactive session to discuss critical business management lessons for practitioners, where we will be expanding on these sessions and other topics. I've seen a comment to say that you would like the presenter to expand on this on podcast. We will do so, but then also starting from next week, Thursday, we will run an interactive session where we can, where we'll allow you colleagues to come into the room and also pose your questions. People like Themba Dikgale and other business gurus will be on the platform to come and share with us some business ideas and critical business lessons. So please do join us. The other exciting news is that we will be having a virtual conference in the next few months. Yes, that's exactly what I said, a virtual conference for optometry. So more information will follow. Please stay tuned. I don't want to say too much, just to say that stay tuned to our social media pages and email to see else what is happening in the next few weeks and months. I noted that when we were quiet last week, people thought we disappeared. We will not disappear, colleagues. We have to now take time from time to time and make sure that we bring you quality and things that you really want to hear. Our website will be running up, will be up and running shortly. We will announce as soon as it goes live. Once the website goes live, by the way, the issue of CPDs and your HPCSA registration numbers will be automated. So just please bear with us for this period. For those of you who want to see the repeats, please note that our webinars are posted on YouTube. So please subscribe to our YouTube channel when you'll be notified when there is a video that has been posted. Those of you attending for the first time, please do remember to send us your HPCSA registration number so that you can allocate points. I think Themba Dikgale, someone asked to say, how do they reach you? I see that the details are there. So those of you want to mention Themba Dikgale for his services, you are more than welcome to do so on the details posted on the screen. And earlier on, I have seen that someone was asking about the assistance, the programs that are being offered by government to small businesses. I know that Themba Dikgale is busy working on putting a session together on his platform where we'll be unpacking these programs. I think once you're ready, Themba Dikgale, we can share the details with the colleagues. Am I right? Themba Dikgale? Okay, I think we seem to be having an issue with it.
Yes, that should be.
Yeah, proceed.
Hello?
Yes, proceed.
Hello? Hello? Okay, so as soon as I think we should be ready within a week or two, and then be able to put together an event such as this one in order to discuss these in more detail.
Okay. All right. So there you have it, colleagues. As soon as that session is ready on his platform, we will share so that you can also go to his platform and then interact with him more on this particular topic of the programs and the payment holidays that government is actually making available and the various organizations are making available to say, what do they mean? Lastly, I just wanted to say our sincerest gratitude to you, Themba Dikgale, for always being available to share your knowledge with us. We sincerely appreciate it. And I think the colleagues also feel the same. I noted by the comments that they've put on in the chat. Any last comments from your side, Themba Dikgale?
No, thank you for the opportunity to be here. I really appreciate the opportunity granted. I feel very fortunate to be able to share what little I know with like-minded people, and hopefully as we go on in the not so distant future, we'll be able to find even more opportunities to interact as effectively.
Okay, thank you so much. Eid Mubarak to those who are celebrating this weekend, and we shall see each other again next week, colleagues. Thank you.